So this is my COVID-19 emergency plan for your rats. As always, I'm going to say don't panic. Plan instead of panicking. If you're stressed, it will stress your rats and they can get respiratory problems from being stressed, and it does not going to do you any good either. So number 2, get your supplies. Make a list of everything you need for your rats. Food, bedding, wood chews, treats, medicine, vitamins if you use vitamins, 2 spare water bottles at least, depending on how many cages you have. You can use a bowl in an emergency, but it's always better to have a spare water bottle. They can go at any time. Small animal cleaners or some safe animal shampoo. Make sure it does not have any eucalyptus, pine, tea tree or cedar oils, anything that's going to irritate your rat's lungs. Microfiber cloths, I use them all the time. They're brilliant for cleaning, especially if you've run out of your cleaners. Plain hand wash or soap, something like simple soap with no perfumes for yourself. Never antibacterial one before you handle your rats. Number 3, replenish. There are going to be delays, so allow extra time for deliveries. We've always kept 3 months supply of food and bedding, and we've topped up with a monthly order. So I'm going to suggest you have at least 1 month's supply, more if you can, for your animals, especially for your food, because it's more difficult to change your rat's diet. Some people say they'll eat anything, but your rats are used to your regular food, and you should probably know if you've ever changed your food, it will always say allow 2 weeks, change your food gradually, not just all in one go. Mix the old food with the new food until they're completely on the new diet. So I would say that if your money is very short at the moment, buy your food first and then get the rest of your supplies as soon as possible. And bear in mind that fresh seeds and grains can go mouldy, so don't go and buy like a year's supply in one go. There's lots of things to remember here, and I'm going to be suggesting some things I wouldn't normally suggest. We've always kept some packets of rat nuggets of Science Selective because a lot of our rats come to us as rescues and they have only ever eaten rat nuggets or Science Selective. Now the reason I keep it in stock is because sometimes they come to me like in the middle of the night and they don't have anything with them, just the rats arrive in a carrier or a little cage. And if a rat has always had nuggets or Science Selective, that's what they used to do. They're stressed enough coming to a new home, so I will keep them on their main food, and when they've settled in, I will gradually add in my rat rations and my other food. And I will always continue to give them a few nuggets every day because they actually seem to really enjoy the nuggets. They will go for them first. The other thing with the nuggets and the packet food, it will last a lot longer and it's got vitamins in, so it is like a complete food and you can just add some fresh food and vegetables. Number 4, no supplies. The absolute horror for a rat owner. You have got nothing left and you have no money. The first thing is, of course, you should never let yourself get into this situation, but this is not a normal situation. So ask other rat owners, friends, local groups, do they have a little that they could spare? They may not, but you can try rescues, rat rescues and animal charities. They may be able to help you out in an emergency, and a lot of people will maybe have a good idea where you can find supplies, especially at a time like this, because the animal charities will have been contacted by local suppliers who maybe haven't produced rat bedding or animal bedding before, but now they're finding that they are using maybe shredded paper or something that they haven't used before, so always ask around. Number 5, be creative but safe. So in an emergency, you've got no cleaners, microfiber cloths and hot water will work. Maybe it won't get rid of every little smell, but it will clean your cage. Now remember to have several microfiber cloths and only use them for one cage, separate ones for each cage, and when you've used them you may need more than one for a cage, especially a big cage, so when they get very dirty you can rinse them out. But I would have several microfiber cloths. I think I used to buy bulk packs of 20 and then wash them all, give them a really good wash in the machine. Again, when you're washing anything for your animals, non-bio, don't add vinegar or fabric conditioner, but have a good supply of microfiber cloths. Now, when I only had a few rats, I would use a little bit of safe animal shampoo, as I've mentioned before, without anything smelly in it like pine or anything. I would mix it up in some water, it would clean my cage up, be beautifully clean, give it a really good rinse, and I'd have a lovely clean cage. Then I had lots of rats, and I would have the Safe 4 odourless spray cleaner. I would remove the rats into another room, spray the cages, rinse them really, really well, ventilate the room before I brought the rats back in, and that worked when I had lots of rats. So there are things that you can do. A lot of people have mentioned white vinegar. Now, I've used this as a household cleaner, but I've never used it with my rats. Even well diluted, it can leave an odour that your rats have very sensitive noses, and they can still pick this odour up. So never ever use it if your rats have respiratory problems. I would say try not to use the vinegar. If you do have to feel your cage is very smelly and it's a final resort, then dilute well, rinse and rinse again really well. Never use any household cleaners, antibacterial cleaners or bleach or anything like that. I've got a list on the previous video, so I check that video out so I don't have to repeat the information too many times. Make sure everything is safe for your rats. Number 6, if food is low, keep a stock of suitable human foods to mix with your rat food. You can get supplies from health food shops. Rat rations also sell individual packs of different oats and various things. Check that every ingredient you use is safe for rats. Try things like some low sugar cereals, the reduced sugar oat Cheerios, plain oats. Don't change your rat's diet suddenly, as we talked about before. And remember, if you're using the fresh foods that are made up for rats, that you need your vitamins, something like Daily Rat 3. And just don't panic. Try not to panic if things are going wrong. Try and just refer back to your little plan of what you've made, and I would work out exactly how much you need for a day for your rats and then add extra on. This is the one time I probably wouldn't scatter feed all my food. I don't anyway. I always put the main bulk of the food into the bowl and just scatter a few little bits, because you don't want to be wasting food, throwing it away with dirty bedding every day. So just a little bit of thought and care, and you should be able to manage, hopefully reasonably well. And number 7, your bedding's low. Now, there's some things you must never use. Used egg boxes are contaminated, never use them. Printed card, printer paper, it has a coating on and some of the inks are not good. Magazines and with coloured pictures and things, also glossy paper, not suitable. Polystyrene, never. Wood bedding, shouldn't be using. You should be using your safe white. Shredded paper, you can get the shredded card you normally get. I'm hoping this will be in good supply still. The other thing, if you normally use is fleece, that's fine, continue using that. Now, I have in an emergency, have mentioned before that you can use newspaper, unwaxed brown paper or brown cardboard that comes in big boxes when you get your deliveries, if you get your stuff in bulk like I do. But at this time, we're going to be quarantining everything. We've always quarantined things for a few days anyway, when we've had boxes. We've never just used a box straight away. With COVID-19, they're recommending 72 hours that this virus could last on surfaces. So we would say don't get a box and shred it up straight away. Keep it for a few days. I've mentioned before, when I first get a box, they're always a little bit dusty. If the box is actually dirty, don't use it at all. If it looks like it's been wet, you can see obvious signs of marks and things if they've been wet. Don't use them. Don't use any boxes that have contained chemicals and cleaners. And I would get a microfiber cloth, some very slightly damp, and I wipe off the cardboard. I cut off any bits with ink on, any printing, and then I leave the card when I'm sure it's clean, without soaking it obviously. I make sure it's clean, and then I would store it in a dry room for a few days until it's absolutely perfectly dry. And I would say don't shred paper in an actual shredder. If you're using paper or cardboard, shred it by hand, because it's much softer and you don't want your rats getting paper cuts if you're using any sort of paper. I know newspaper is fairly soft, but the paper that's on cardboard boxes and brown paper, it can be quite hard. I say make sure the brown paper is totally unwaxed, hasn't got anything on it, any finishes. And shred by hand and pulling apart in little pieces by hand. Something to be wary of here, lots of people in emergency will use things like toilet roll, kitchen roll, tissues. Tissues and kitchen paper have plastics in them, so they're not ideal, and all of those things can go soggy. So they're okay for an emergency, but try and make sure your rats are not eating them, and remove any horrible clumpy bits straight away. But I'm hoping you'll be able to get your bedding okay, even if you have problems with the food. So number 8, I'm putting quarantine things when they first come into the house. So that's the 72 hours. I'm sort of giving it a day longer. Safely store, very important. Do not freeze your food, especially any foods, whether it's the packet foods. You absolutely no need to freeze the packet nuggets and things. Just make sure there's no tears or rips in the bag. Sometimes they have the tiny pinprick holes in them, but that's fine, don't worry about that. Just quarantine them before you use them. And make sure that you seal your bags when you have opened them. Get big plastic clips to seal your bags up. And with your paper and everything, absolutely no need to freeze it. With your fresh foods, do not freeze them either. The seeds and grains can go mouldy, and what happens is when you've frozen food, it will, as it thaws, you'll get condensation and mould spores will grow. So never freeze any of your rat food or bedding. It is not necessary. Quarantine things and store them safely. Remember to keep things sealed, away from sunlight and heat, away from chemicals and cleaners. And I think it's just basic common sense. And if you've seen any of the videos before, I think I've talked many times about safe storage and keeping things nice and clean, and just basic common sense, but just avoid the household cleaners. I think I've said everything I can say at the moment. If I think of anything else, I'll add a note in the comments. But thank you for watching, and if you've got any ideas, let me know.